Welcome to the All Access Podcast from the experts at Tevis. Each episode, we'll talk about technology topics, trends, or solutions that manufacturers need to know in today's rapidly evolving times. Sit back, enjoy the discussion, and let us know what you think.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to the All Access Podcast. I am your host, Michael Thiessen. You know what? This episode, we're really going to look into what all of you mold makers and some of the other listeners, probably in other industries too, but most of your mold makers are doing currently. And that's you're doing machining operations. You've got machines sitting in your machine bay. If you listen to some of the other podcasts that we've done beforehand, you kind of realize there's a common theme. And that common theme is how can we in the mold environment automate more? Because I think all of you guys are running into the same kind of problems that even we here at Tevis are running into, is we can't find enough people. So how do you handle this situation with a labor shortage? And obviously the key to this is automation. So with me on this podcast, I have Cullen Morrison here. Now, Cullen Morrison is the regional sales manager from the company Hermle, or Hermle EG, as they're also known over in Germany. And if you know anything about Hermle, you know that this particular product is a very special product, a very interesting product to look at from a machining aspect, as well as from looking at the area of automation. This gentleman has so much insight and so much knowledge when it comes to machines and its capabilities and why this particular company is so interesting when you come to automation. So, Cullen, welcome to the All Access Podcast.
Thank you. I don't think I could appreciate more the setup that you have there. You're setting the bar pretty high, though, for our conversation today.
Well, of course, every single person that comes in this podcast gets a very high bar, so you're no different. But nevertheless, I'm really excited to talk to you today a little bit about Hermle and what's going on with Hermle. For some of those listeners that are out there that have never heard of Hermle before, tell these guys a little bit about who Hermle is, where they're from, what they're doing, and what's so special about these milling machines that you guys got.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm not going to give everybody all the details to that, but we'll shorten that down. So Hermle is a very, very special company, as you mentioned. So founded in the 30s in Gosheim in Germany, southwest of Germany. Had a few transitions over the years. They started as a machine shop and then later in life started building machines and went through a couple iterations of machines just as times and technology changed. And then in the 90s era in there, they really decided they wanted to focus on 5-axis and high-end 5-axis equipment. And really, ever since then, that has been the company's focus today. And they have been able to build, truly amazing machines, but it's an amazing structure and culture and everything behind that. So, fast forward to today, what Hermle offers today is really 9 machining centers. There's 2 different series of machines, what we call the high performance machines and then the regular performance line machines. Really, to sum that down, the high performance machines are definitely more geared towards very specific special applications. Those are kind of the top of the top, best of the best machines. The performance line machines are built with a lot of the same parts, the same people, the same factory, same tolerances. They're just a little bit more slimmed down option set to be a little bit more general use. Is really what they are. So between those, we cover a very flexible range of what they offer, but that's just really our focus. So the machines and then automation systems that go with that. And because of, all the different industries, mold, aerospace, medical, electronics, general manufacturing, all of that, we've been pushed over the years by, what is needed in these areas. And so the mold makers obviously needed very, very high precision and be able to match and blend tool paths and get surfaces that match very good. A lot of our high-end aerospace companies wanted to be able to cut super alloys, and so we needed to strengthen the rigidity of the machine. And the medical guys needed very, very high levels of precision. And so just over the years, all of these capabilities were really stacked in the machine, and then supported from a very special. There's really no other way to explain it, but just a very special aspect behind it. The people that come and get to meet the Hermle team, especially the team in Germany, you see the factory and everything else with it. The USA team and the Mexican team and everything else is absolutely amazing as well. Hermle is not a machine. It's not a machine builder. It's a culture. It's a way of supporting and everything with it. If we talk with some of the people who have worked their entire lives at Hermle and seen the journey over the years, they would tell you what made Hermle special is they made a very good machine. I mean, they're maybe better in one aspect or another or whatever it is, but they made a very good, flexible machine, and they supported it extremely well. That's the thing. If you get a chance to talk with many of the Hermle customers, they will happily tell you just the support level that they get from that, the capability that they get from the machine is next to nothing. And that's something that we extend throughout all of what we do in supporting customers and the value that we try to bring and the support behind that.
Right. It's so interesting to hear that you mentioned that the Hermle is not a machine. It is a culture. It really is an experience that you need to have, because the experience that you're getting from a Hermle machine is just a different feeling. And I had one customer just recently, he was looking at a Hermle machine, and he asked me, he goes, "Hey, Michael, do you know anything about these Hermles?" And I know what they have two different lines. And I'm going, "Really?" Yeah, they have the C42 line, U, and then there's the other one. What's the difference? So when I visited just recently at your Franklin facility in Wisconsin and talked to Günther Schnitzer, your president and CEO for the U.S., I asked that question, what's really different? And you mentioned that earlier too. You have these two lines of machines where before you didn't really have, you had only one line essentially. And everybody still has that mindset of, oh yeah, Hermle is top of the line, super expensive, blah, all that kind of stuff that goes along with it. And that really isn't true anymore, because you have these two types of lines that have a totally different aspect, totally different viewpoint, different price points even to that perspective as well. And the interesting thing is that I had to ask Günther, because this question was asked by this particular client. He said, "Michael, why can't I find any used Hermles?" And of course, Günther said, because companies hold on to these particular machines because they're just so special.
Yeah, that's what, like, I love my job in sales and technical support and everything in there. And I love going and visiting the companies, and I see the machines that are 20 years old. And they just still love these machines. I can't even count the places that I've been that have machines, 2005, 6, 7, 2008, and they still tell me that that's one of the absolute best performing machines on their floor. So it is something truly, truly special.
Now, obviously, companies and individuals, because of that experience, because of that cult or this culture, are really coming together, and it shows. You guys had early in the spring the Hermle Open House over in Gosheim, and I know we did together between Tebes AG and Hermle AG a very special project, that a beautiful microbus, a VW microbus, that if you listeners have not seen that, go on to Hermle's website or on the Tebes' website, or even go on YouTube and look for that. It is truly amazing. And I think it was one of the stars of that show, of that open house.
Yeah, there was a lot of technology going on at our technology center there. We have, I believe it's 20 machines that were running, but there were really, two things that I would say stood out really above the most of what people looked at. And, one was certainly the VW bus. Another one was the pipe carrier project that we did on a C42, which is a very, very impressive demo also done by the Tevis team.
Yeah, that particular part, and all credits go to the Hermle team and also Michi Zelti, who I want to name here too, who's done an enormous job on this particular project, and it really shows the capability of that C42 machine, that it can really hold very, very high tolerances, because that part came out absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, one of the things that's really hard for us to explain about the machines, I mean, everybody says it, but it's really hard to see it, is if you had to describe one of the things Hermle can do really well is we can process code. The machines can process code extremely fast, extremely accurately. There's a lot that goes in behind that. And that was certainly one of the better demos I've seen in a long time that really shows that, because you just see how fast and how quickly that's moving. But then you see the end result part that comes in, and it looks immaculate with it. And having that, I mean, yes, all these demos are cool and everything else, and people look at them, but it's when you start looking into the fine details is where you start to see the story that's the value for the end customers. And that's one of the things we always try to say is, not everybody's going to make a pipe carrier or a bus or, whatever it is, but they can certainly look at the aspects that go into that and relate that to what's important to them. So like, with the bus, it's kind of a very complex, large part, very similar to like a mold surface, something like that. And people need to see that, okay, this is what is capable with, not just the machine, but this approach, everything that went in behind it, the tooling, the programming, the work holding, the cutting tools, the care that went into it. And it's the same thing with the pipe carrier project is, as we get into a little bit more complex parts, and especially aluminum components, non-ferrous components, things that, need to cut pretty quickly to be efficient with them, then you can really see that, hey, I can move this quickly. I can cut this quickly without getting chatter, without breaking tools, and, without the headaches. And, those are really the underlying stories that we're trying to tell with a lot of those that, hey, the technology is kind of between, let's say, cutting tools and software and machine tools kind of ebbs and flows. We always see the capabilities of the cutting tools usually gets a little bit higher. Then the machines catch up. Then the software catches up. And it's always this back and forth kind of pushing everybody. And we really love to push those limits because that's what a lot of our customers demand of us.
And our customers and your customers, they have the same goal. They want to make the perfect part in the shortest amount of time. And you said it correctly, all of us, if that's work holding fixtures, if that's the tooling manufacturers, if that's the software that produces the code, if that is Hermle with the machine that runs the code, if that's the coolant that has to go into it, all of these things, they have something to do with influencing in order to get the perfect part. You're not going to be getting a great looking part if you take a beautiful Hermle machine with a tooling that has been 20 years old, non-balanced, all that kind of stuff. You're not going to get it. Yes, you're going to get it a little bit better, but it's not going to go there.
Yeah, it's always a chain. It's kind of the weakest link in the chain that's coming in there. And everybody's always just about reinforcing certain parts of the chain is really what that is, and creating that level of reliability, process reliability. And that gets you at the end of that chain is automation. And that's where we're trying to kind of take everybody to, because that's where it's going to have to go. There's no argument on that.
And that's what I love about your events that you guys have showed over the many years, if that's the open house or even the new event that's coming up that I'm going to talk about in the next couple of minutes. But this is where you bring everybody together, the right technologies, so that when your clients or your prospects or just people that are just interested in machining can see the end result and what does it take, what partners does it take to kind of get that all established, so that they can do it. So this next event that's coming up, it's a little bit unique, if I can say it that way, because it's not an open house, or it's not called an open house, let's say it this way. But what is it called? So
the 5-Axis Summit, where we're wanting the event to be a focus on everything 5-axis. So, you hear that, you said it correctly. You hear that term open house. I mean, honestly, I think it's getting somewhat of a kind of a negative connotation to it. I don't want to put that in a bad light by any means, but when you hear open house, you think kind of the same old, and we're definitely wanting to deliver above that because, as we spoke earlier, that's not our MO as a company. That's not what our customers need. That's not what serves them. And the same thing with all of our partners and everything else. That's not what serves all of their customers either. So, the time is definitely right. And we wanted to be, good stewards of 5-axis for our customers. And so that was really the premise behind this event, was to make it, bring everybody together that we could. There's still going to be some that are missing, of course, of some of the partners that are there, but bring what we could together and bring a really, really high value, high impact event for people, either experts in 5-axis down to just dabbling into it as to where this fits where I'm going. Because for us, that is the key cornerstone right now of manufacturing, is everything is going towards 5-axis. It's not all going to end up there, but I really think, and people are going to argue with me on this, but I really feel that, even some say it's now, but definitely in the future, 5-axis machines are really going to be the default standard. When people start looking at adding milling equipment to that, or even turning equipment, to have milling capability to it and tilting B-axis capability, that to buy a machine that does not have that level of capability to it, I really think you're going to have a good justification not to buy it, versus today the theory is, okay, I have to have a serious justification to buy that equipment. I think we're seeing that kind of swap in there, and it's being driven largely by complexity of parts, certainly, but even very simple parts anymore. We're going to be running a demo of a part. It's just a simple prismatic 5-sided part. I don't want to give too much of it away, but I mean, it could be cut on a simple 3-axis C-frame machine in a couple of setups and be perfect. I think that's how these parts are actually manufactured today, or in a 4-axis machine. But what we're going to be showing with it is the amount of setup reduction that could be done with it. Because that's one thing when I speak with manufacturers, that's the first thing that comes to mind if they don't talk about 5-axis today, is like, oh, I don't make fancy parts. Okay. And it's like, you don't have to make fancy parts. All of our demos are ultra fancy. And that's one thing. I love them. They look beautiful. They're great. They really get attention. But honestly, it's not a great showing of what a lot of our customers do. A lot of our customers do simple things that, don't really need 5-axis, but they're using it for the setup reduction of it, or the quality control of being able to have one chucking and be able to attack multiple datums or multiple angles, or approach a deep wall smarter, as opposed to using longer tools where now you can tilt the tools and get that in there. So I really think that that's where things are going to go. And, people are going to start seeing that, hey, I need fewer people to move parts and flip parts from, station A to station B. And I can really reduce that WIP, that work in process of parts sitting on my floor. So we really thought this event is going to be a good kickoff for that technology now and moving into the future. It's really needed.
I think a lot of manufacturers are still stuck in the 80s, if I can say that I think the stigmatism, and I was one of them in my former shop that I was at, 5-axis was always considered difficult to program from a software perspective. And also the machines were not as dynamic as the machines were, because the answer was always that, 3+2 is a heck of a lot quicker to program or 3-axis than 5-axis. Well, that has all changed with these new technologies of machines and the linear drives and the amazing speed that these machines nowadays have. That is not an issue anymore. The other issue is also not from a programming perspective. Programming a 5-axis job with, of course, I'm going to say here, Tebas, it's not that difficult anymore. You have a lot better control, a lot easier ways of operation. So technology has advanced. A lot of companies are still stuck in their mindset in the 80s that said, you know what, I'm just going to do 3-axis and that's it.
Well, I think that's really how that's went. I mean, it's not that hard to look back and see everybody went from 3-axis to 4-axis, 4-axis made a lot of sense. You get a little bit of better automation capability to it. Generally, when you start seeing a lot of horizontal machines, you have that better access to at least 3 sides of a part, maybe 4 sides of a part, depending on how that's set up there. But you maintained all that kind of same rigidity and accuracy and ease of use of a 3-axis machine. It was simple to program. When 5-axis started coming along, I would say it was ahead of time of the technology that was needed to make that simple to implement. Only the guys that absolutely had to have it went there. Now we've had a certain amount of time come past, and you're 100% right that everything else has now caught up to it. The progression into 5-axis is now much, much easier. I describe it to some of our customers who are getting into it as, yes, there's a very high barrier to 5-axis from 3 or 4-axis, but it's very thin. It's like a curtain. And like you just need a peek behind the curtain is really all you need. And then you can start to see how the world really opens up to you, because just like you said, the software is there. The machine capability is there. Some of the features on the machine to make this much, much simpler to set up and do is there. And quite frankly, a lot of customers today of ours and other 5-axis machine builders, they run their machines like 3-axis machines or 3+2-axis machines a good portion of the time. There's really only so many parts that truly require 5-axis simultaneous. Now, there are many parts that could easily be done in 3 or 4-axis, but there are certain benefits of running the tools in a 5-axis orientation. Something like stirs milling or something like that, where you can now say we're surfacing at the top of a mold, and instead of using the bottom of the ball mill where you have zero surface footage, now we can tilt the tool at, let's call it a 30-degree angle. And now you can use the tool in a much more efficient manner and get better access. And that just gives you a larger toolbox to work from.
Right. Now, this 5-axis summit, when is it?
So it's October 3rd, 4th, and 5th at the Hermle USA office in Franklin, Wisconsin, just outside Milwaukee.
October 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Of course, it's in my calendar because obviously Tebis is going to be there. We're actually working not to take anything away, but we're working on a joint part that we're going to show at this and debut it at this particular event. From what I've seen, it is incredible. It looks stunning. Hermle in the area of the industries that Hermle machines are being utilized, it's a lot of mold die applications, die cast, but also this also maybe introduces it to aerospace more and more. Is that a correct statement?
Yeah, which we have a lot of customers in the aerospace side. I would say for us, we're pretty prevalent in just about every industry. One of the exceptions may be ultra high volume automotive, somebody making 1 million of one part. If that's the case, that's a little bit more specialized type system. So you're always going to be better off with that. But the bigger drivers are definitely die mold. Those are the guys that are seeing a lot of benefits of this. Tool building and all of that associated with it. Aerospace for sure, medical, electronics, just even general manufacturing. Like I talked about before, of the setup reduction and everything else in there, people making a simple gearbox. But the aerospace side and the die mold side, I would say those are the guys that are feeling the fire underneath them, that they have to do something. They have to make that move to stay competitive.
Right. It's so interesting when I go around and talk to customers, even prospects, new clients that are interested in Tebis. The first thing that always comes up when we talk with them and kind of feel out what these companies are doing and how they're applying themselves is, we just purchased a Hermle machine. That's one of the first things that I'm hearing lately, and I'm no joke. The last 5 companies that we've talked to here, all of them either just purchased a Hermle machine, are waiting for delivery, and are now looking for a software solution can do this, that can program this, and then also simulate it at the same time. Because of course, nobody wants to crash these beautiful machines. But you also have, if that should ever happen where you have an issue going on, you have in Wisconsin also a very dedicated service team. Because with any company, even with us at Tebis, we focus very heavily on the support side and on the service side. And I think you guys are no different.
Yeah, and I mentioned that earlier, is the support side is key to our business. And it's a strategy there. One, it's the right thing to do. That's above all. That's how it should be. We have service engineers based all across the country, and then beyond that, like I said, it's the culture that we have. And then it's just a strategic business decision. I mean, it's really not that hard to do. Is Hermle is in the business of selling machines. That's what we do. That's how we make our money. It's no different than anybody else how they make their money. Some other builders out there, I don't want to put anybody in a negative light, but they're pretty happy selling machine and then making the money on the service side of it, and not making money actually on a sale of a machine. That's not our business. We're going to make money selling the machines, and from there, and quite honestly, the easiest customer to sell machines to is one that's very, very happy with a machine. And we think that is the best value we can deliver to the customers, because at the end of the day, that's all they want. People aren't out just buying machines for glamour or whatever it is. They're trying to solve a problem, and they want to solve that problem and move on to the next, and not have to come back to it of it has maintenance issues, or it can't do what we needed to do, or whatever it is. So we feel we have a pretty high value proposition in there, is we deliver a solution and we support that solution.
And it's very interesting and refreshing to see you put the customer first when you provide a high quality product like Hermle, because the last thing that you want to see is that a machine's going to break down, because you're already thinking about this, because it is high quality that you guys do. It has a longer longevity. It has a better ability to go against some of the forces that are going along when you program or when you run the machines, that it has just a longer life without any kind of issues, because you guys are thinking about the customer already, because the moment that this machine breaks down, these guys are struggling to keep up. They have to then maybe offload this job to somewhere else, if that's even to their competitor. And that is something that you guys take very seriously. And you know what? I commend you for doing this, because you guys have an awesome team there.
I mean, it's the culture behind it. It really is. Like, we've kind of talked about the whole thing, even leading up to this event here, is that just all the support and everything goes in behind it. It must work as it's intended to. And it takes XYZ to get there. There's a lot of everything that goes in behind the machine.
This technology summit could have been renamed something else, because not only are you going to show 5-axis there, and it could have been called the Automation Summit, because the level of automation that you guys have with the robot pallet system is just extreme.
Yes. Yeah. So the RS systems from us, what you see there's a couple different ones in there, but those are the things that if there was something to not miss, those would be it. At the event, we will have an RS1 system on our floor and what we call an RS05 system, which is kind of its smaller brother. But the RS1 system is, and again, I don't want to go off on a commercial rant by any means, but it is really something to behold as next level type flexible technology. It is really anything you want to throw at the system, it can do, and it can do very easily in the way of it can handle pallets, it can handle tools, it can handle individual parts, it can handle vices, it can do all of this. It is a robotic system, but you don't have to be there physically programming the robot of it. You have kind of predefined spots as to what certain things could go in certain areas. And then from there, it's really just kind of loading it as to, okay, I need pallets for this. This part works better being held in vices, or this part is better being individually held with a gripper coming in. And we've done all the software on the back end to make that a very simple graphical interface, where my background was not in robots, but when I was trained on this system, I had about 30 to 45 minutes of training at pretty quickly through. Customers will give weeks of training to, but about 45 minutes training, I was able to set up 3 different jobs that the machine had never seen before, both part handling and pallet handling, in about another 30 to 45 minutes. Like, that level of highly flexible automation, you just don't see anywhere else. And that's bringing that next level to those people who, don't think automation's for them. When you hear the term automation or you hear robot, you immediately think, oh, I don't have 100,000 parts to do. You don't have to. Automation is a mindset and it's a process.
And I love that idea. And it truly is a mindset, because with the automation, Cullen, it's companies, like we said earlier in the beginning of the episode here, companies are struggling to get labor or people to come in, experts. Having that additional ability now of loading the pallet system into it, it gives the company owners and the CEOs one additional item that says, okay, you know what, I can do this now with this particular technology, and it helps them out. So I think that's awesome. And I've seen it in action, and you have to see it to believe it, because it is truly, and several of my customers have purchased this.
Yeah, I mean, when we try to describe it to people, they just don't believe that it's possible. And to see the power of it, at the event, we're going to have a little seminar basically on the power of automation, and talking a little bit about that and what you can do. And, we really hope people come and engage with that. But, one little case study, not to give it away from that, is there was a customer of ours that they had 5 machines. They were running 2 shifts, I believe. They had about 7 people staffing these 5 machines. And they were just kind of a general manufacturer, very flexible, 5 parts of this, 20 parts of that, 2 parts of this. That's what they ran. But they could not continue to hire people at that rate of staff versus machine. And they really didn't want to automate. That wasn't in their mindset, but they had no other choice. So they purchased a machine from us with an automation system. This one happened to be a robot system, an RS1 or RS2, I believe it was. And what they found out is, before, on the 5 machines with 7 people, they were getting somewhere in the neighborhood of like 6,500 spindle hours a year. I mean, don't quote me on this, but somewhere in there. On the new machine, just one machine with the automation system, they could staff that for the same amount of time on 2 people and get the same roughly 6,500 spindle hours a year out of that. And then that same cell could also be added a second machine to run off the same automation system. So in theory, they could double to 12,000 hours a year off of 2 people running it. Like, that has been the power that has given them for a much more competitive edge, a much leaner, much smaller space requirement that has to go in. So there's a lot of other things that, when people hear that term automation, they think, like I said earlier, hundreds of thousands of parts. Is like, no. This solved a lot of problems that had absolutely nothing to do with the volume of parts that they ran.
Right. Now, at the summit, to come back to this particular event, you're doing something very unique. Now, you guys are doing a roundtable discussion between a lot of the technology experts that are going to be there, and it becomes a dialogue between the people that are there that try to get an aspect of the different technologies that are there, and they can bring something home with them of what they're seeing at their roundtable discussion and so forth. Tell me a little bit about this idea of this roundtable.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to have kind of 2 versions of this each day. So we're going to have a roundtable discussion with actual end users, end customers of ours, and many of them don't even have Hermle machines, but they're very influential in the topic we want to talk about. On specific topics, things could be general challenges in business. One of them will be about automation, how they implemented it. We'll have people talking in that who do higher volume, people that do higher mix, a company that does die mold stuff, so onesie twosie sorts of things, but they happen to have a very high technology automation system, and get their perspectives of how that was implemented. We have another topic we're going to discuss about the influence of social media on today's business, marketing your business, and how much time you should devote to that or whatnot, because again, that's next level. Then each day we will also have a similar kind of roundtable, we're calling it a little bit more of an expert panel with it, where one thing that was asked of us is, like we'd mentioned before with the demo parts, is, okay, how did you do that? What went into it? What went behind it? And we thought, okay, we have a lot of partners in the industry. There's a lot of expertise. Let's let these guys answer these questions. So the event's 3 days. We have three different seminars. 2 of them are fairly similar, where we're going to group some companies together. We'll group a cam company, a work holding company, and a tooling company together. We do appreciate Tevis. I believe you will be with us on one of these to discuss a certain part and what went in behind the scenes of that, what the concerns are of there, from a work holding gripping aspect of it to a tooling aspect to the cam side, is what do the experts see in this? And, we're kind of calling it process planning of behind the scenes of the parts, because, that's really the look you want to see is, how are others doing this and everything else. I mean, I've been around the world to quite a few places and, been to several, tech schools and engineering colleges and everything else. I've never once seen them training or showing behind the scenes how the processing is done or what the thought process is. Everybody just kind of develops their own, or maybe they learn it from a coworker or something like that. So we wanted to show an alternate. It may not be the best, but it's something that we're going to have the experts do. So we're going to have two different parts that will be there, just kind of two different industries. So two different looks of that and different companies talking about those. And on the third day, we're going to also do something similar, but not necessarily processing a part, but everything that goes in planning and processing wise for automation. So again, when we talk about customers wanting to do automation, they think of the hardware. They think of the robot, the pallet shuttle, the whatever it may be, but automation is a process. Automation could very well be that I only ever run one piece of this, two pieces of that, but they're all P20 steel, and I'm going to run my high feed mill in these cutting conditions in P20. So then it really doesn't matter what tool path it runs in at that point, or what shape, I would say, as long as you're running the same types of engagement. And so just a look behind the scenes of what all the experts do there. So we think that's going to be a very engaging topic.
It will be very exciting, and we're honored and excited to be at I called it an open house at the 5-Axis Summit, and we're going to be adding to the entire topic of automation and how to automate besides the robot, what you can do on the software, and we're extremely excited. If you would give one reason, or maybe there's two reasons, why companies should look up this 5-Axis Summit, what would you say to these companies of why they should come?
Honestly, I think this is the best look into the future that you're going to get in a long time, and it's 100% free to attend.
Awesome. You know what, Cullen, it was a real pleasure having you here on the All Access podcast, and we thank you. And I will be seeing you here very shortly, October 3rd through 5th, if I got this correct, and in Franklin, in Wisconsin, at the Hermle USA headquarters. Come and see the machines, the robots, the technology partners that they've got there. I think you even have some German tent style thing going on. So yep, it's going to be an event not to miss.
Yeah, we're going to have a nice little Oktoberfest style event there. The Hermle hospitality is a real thing. If you talk with people who have been with us, that'll be there. We're going to have nearly 30 partners of ours on site. A lot of education to be had, a lot of collaboration with others. So the value we're delivering here is very, very high.
Awesome. Cullen, thank you so much for being on the All Access podcast.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having us, Michael. Awesome.
Now to all of you guys heard it from the man directly. It's a mindset, 5-axis machining. It's another mindset of how to automate. And you got to put your head around it and put your thoughts around it already. If this is the direction that you want to go, if you're running into situations where you can't find enough people to run your company or to do all the necessary setups on your machines, maybe look at some of the automation capabilities that are there and see us at the 5-Axis Summit in Franklin. We're going to be there at Tebas. I've got some of my team members here. We're showing off an exciting part that I don't think you would want to miss. So hopefully I'll see you there. Send us your thoughts on future podcasts, and I'm looking forward to talking to you again here very soon. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining this episode of All Access. Please leave a comment or review with your feedback or what you'd like to hear in future episodes. To learn more about manufacturing technology solutions and Tebas's capabilities, visit our website at Tebas. That's TEBIS.com.